Hi, fellow travelers. Helen Hall here. Today, let's gather around the campfire and find our authentic writing voices. Today, we'll be discussing perspective. There's an old adage in my day job that two people can see the same thing and report it very differently. This is very important to keep in mind when writing. The pressure to be as good as someone else will always be there. Nagging self-doubt, these things exist. But if we give ourselves our honest permission to be ourselves, then our writing will eventually reflect that. We, through the course of our lives, meet many, many wonderful people, and parts of their good traits naturally wind up within ourselves. We don't need to force it. We can just say, well, gee, that was great, and move on. Maybe look at an outline or two or something of a scene and say, okay, this is why this scene worked. Would it work for my story? You have to have that essential step of, will it work for me? Otherwise, when you look at good writers and think, I want to become that person, you lose your own authentic voice. We've all been called to be writers. Let's be writers. Let's not imitate other writers, but essentially be ourselves. If you keep this adage in mind when writing as well, it helps give your characters a unique presence in the story. For instance, I'm going to pull from a common example I use when explaining this adage. You're in a parking lot, shopping center, bunch of stores. Inside the lot, someone is trying to sell a vehicle. Let's make it a car from before the millennium. It still functions. The paint's peeling. Maybe some parts of it are rusting. But it functions, it passes smog. They want $500 for it. Not a lot of money, but it runs. 3 people pass that car. The first is a rich snob who looks at the vehicle, looks at how run down it is, starts documenting that the car doesn't have a touch screen, no XM radio, barely has air conditioning, no power windows. These sorts of things make the rich snob assume that the buyer and seller both made major mistakes in their lives in order for that car to even be available. Who'd want to drive that unless they were utterly desperate? The environmentalist comes up upon the car, and the environmentalist focuses on the rust, the peeling paint, the natural lack of technologies that reduce emissions, and thinks, why is this car even legal to be sold? How could a car like this ever pass smog? And the environmentalist secretly wishes that there were more low-end cost ranges for things that didn't harm the environment. He wishes the technology got better so no one would have to drive that car. Meanwhile, a teenager comes across the same vehicle. He focuses on the fact that it has a radio in it at all. It's freedom, and it's something he can get while flipping burgers in order to take his date around. 3 different people have 3 different perspectives on the same object, and they would report different things as being relevant to the description. The teenager would be so full of optimism regarding that vehicle. Like, give it a paint job, and it would look much better. The rusting parts would still be annoying, but it would look a lot better with a paint job. Maybe some custom upholstery if he's into that. But what you see depends so much on your mindset and your character's mindset. If you can take a major event and look at it from 3 different perspectives, even if you shouldn't include all of them in your novel, you likely have 3 fleshed out different characters. Now, let's bring this back to the writing for a moment. If you feel so stuck in pressure to be someone else, then you're going to stunt your ability to describe scenes with different characters in different ways because you're so trapped up in there being only one acceptable answer. There will always be another acceptable answer in terms of how to write. There will be a way to get where you want to get. You just have to take the time and effort to get there. Writing is not a fast process. It will take time. I know my future manuscript, The Mind Walkers, will likely not be out until the end of 2019 or maybe even early 2020, just because of the amount of time that it would take. That's it for today's chat. Feel free to follow me at Twitter at author Helen Hall, email authorhelenhall@gmail.com, or Facebook at Helen Hall Books. I am currently doing a Secret Santa, if you would, on my profile. Send me a message on any of my platforms directly, and I will include a shout out to one of your followers anonymously, giving them a compliment, hopefully getting them through this New Year hurdle. Thank you, and I'll see you at the next campfire chat on Saturday.